Good. Hey, good evening, and welcome to Trap No More podcast on this beautiful Sunday. I'm excited to be here. Happy late Mother's Day. I know you guys, a lot of you were, texting me and messaging me about if we were going to go live. I had sent out a notice. I don't know why I didn't post, but yeah, that's the reason why I wanted you guys to just spend time with your mothers, your loved ones, and whatnot. And on them type of special occasions, we probably won't be recording because I'm gonna be with my wife and my mother-in-law that's alive today, thank God. So that's the reason being, all right. But we're definitely, going on today. I just want to remind all of you, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out every time we do something, all right. Also just want to thank all the support that you guys been giving us, and with your sharing of it, your messaging, especially on my website, my www.trapfamilies.com. I've been getting a lot of messages. I've been getting a lot of people that have been just reaching out and wanting help with their loved ones that are incarcerated, them that are caught up in their addiction. So by you guys spreading the word and putting it out there, I'm able to help that much more people. So I really do appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you. And keep putting it out there. So with no further ado, I am so blessed to have Mr. Alan Johnson in the house today. Yes, 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 yes. This man right here, man, you talk about somebody helping people. Man, this man right here has probably helped thousands upon thousands, getting families reunified, getting people, clean and sober, getting people to break away from that criminal, addictive thinking and behaviors. Man, I could just go on and on the different people, the different communities that this man has helped. And I'm just going to let him go ahead and jump right into his story because, man, I know it's deep. I don't want to tell you, bits and pieces out of context, but I'm going to let you, Mr. Allen, jump into your story, brother, man.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
And thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. I've only watched one podcast ever, and it was yours.
Okay.
So I'm not a podcast guy. But my story may seem a little dull, but I was just thinking, sitting here, about what transpired to make me arrive at this place. And earlier I told JoJo, if you change one thing, you change everything. So thinking about the past, because I don't typically share my story a lot, not these days. I did a while ago, but I'm going to start from the beginning. So we got a lot of time. So just hold on to your seat and we'll see what happens. My mother and father, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. And back then it was a lot of segregation. I didn't see too many white people at the time. Definitely didn't see any Latinos or Asians or anything like that. It was just strictly a black community. My mother and my father had grown up there themselves. Fast forward, my father went into the military. And before he went to the military, my mother was like 16. She had gotten pregnant. So back then you had to do the right thing. So my father sent for my mother to come to France to see me. I mean, to marry. She went to France to get married. And, back then that was the right thing to do. So you had to do it. And I always say I traveled the whole world before I even knew what was going on. I was born in France and I went to Alaska. I went all over Europe. And I wound up, believe it or not, in California. My sister was born in California. That's when I first started remembering most things. And there was some really, now that I think about it, my father was abusive, but I loved him to death. He wasn't abusive to me. He never put his hand on me, but he was a batterer, with my mother. And I didn't quite really understand that at the time. But we got on a train going back to Baltimore. I've never been to Baltimore. I'm like 4 or 5 years old because I started school out here. I never forget it. I lived on La Brea and Venice. and the house is still there. Every time I ride by it, I look at it. But at any rate, I was 4 or 5 years old. And we're talking about the early 60s. So I went back to Baltimore and I met my grandmother and my grandfather, and my mother has 5 siblings. So every day when the doorbell rang, I would go up there. I was thinking it was my father. I was thinking, I said, he's coming back. He's coming back, because I loved my father. And I love my mother too, but my father was one of those guys who was charismatic. He was just one of those kind of people when he walked in the door, everybody stopped. I mean, he was a magnet. He attracted anybody and everybody. He could talk to, bum on the street all the way up to the president. I mean, he was that good. And I idoled him. I thought he was just the greatest. So for about a year or so, I kept going to the door. And then one day I went to the door. I forgot about him coming to see me, and he was there. And I said, oh my gosh, my father. So he eventually took us to his grandma. He came back because my grandmother was getting ready to pass away. She had cancer. She smoked like 2 packs of cigarettes a day. So he took me back to his house with my mother and my sister. And I remember I used to always say, where's Joanne? Where's Joanne? And I was like probably about 4, still in California then. Or no, it might have been in Maryland. But I always kept saying, where's Joanne? Where's Joanne? And I'll get to that part later. But that now that I think about it, it has affected me a lot, especially now when I don't like to open up a lot of my trauma, because I don't know, I don't want to close myself up, or I do that. How I handle a lot of trauma is not so much to ignore it, but to look for. That may not be the best way to work it, but it works for me. And everybody has to find their own path, their own healing process. So at any rate, we went over there to my father's house on Mondawmin Avenue. And I guess the beating still continued with my mother. My mother's very outspoken. She was, she would tell him how she felt, and that didn't go over good with my father because he was pretty much domineering. And then eventually it happened. They about 2 years later they divorced. So I went back to East Baltimore, which is my grandmother's house. I went back there, and I would see my father like on the weekends or whenever he came to pick me up and things like that. I was always kind of quick and fast. I kind of learned a lot early in my life, because when I was like one, they never talked baby talk to me. They always talked conversation. And I learned how to write and read before I even went to kindergarten. My mother, she was a homemaker, so all she did was like teach me. So I was really, up on top of things. Fast forward again, that fell off, but we'll get to that in a minute. But at any rate, I went back to East Baltimore, my grandmother's house, and I grew up there. And again, it was really segregated. I had a few friends. I went to elementary school. And then what happened was my mother went back to school. She had never, she graduated from high school. So she went back to school to become a teacher. And she met a professor there, and they got married. Now, I thought my father was abusive, but this guy who came in my life, he not only beat my mother, he beat me and my sister. So he was like, really bad news to this day. Well, he's passed away now, but my mother's always been in fear of him. She never feared my father, but she always was in fear. So anyway, we went to live with him, and my mother got married and the whole 9 yards. And he would take us to school. And again, he was very abusive. And I remember one day, me and my sister, quite ironically, we lived about 3 or 4 blocks from my father. But I remember one day, my sister and I had a tape recorder, and I was taping all the things that my stepfather did to us, and my sister kind of like erased it. She thought we would get in trouble and get beat if he found out about it. So back then I was starting my kind of sneaky behavior. I would go with my father on the weekends or other days, and my father was, he was a hustler. Matter of fact, his nickname, people didn't call him Joe. That's my middle name, Joseph. His name was Proposition Joe, and they used to call him Prop. And again, he was flamboyant. I mean, he always had big cars. He used to write numbers back then. I don't know if you don't know numbers. It was the lottery before they took it away from the inner city and made it legal. So he'd write numbers. He would fence hot stuff. He would do everything. Little did I know that he was doing other things. And we would go to dinner when other people would say, "You're going to be like your father," and he would stop and say, "No, he's going to get an education. He's going to college. He's going to do that. He's not going to drink alcohol. He's not going to do any of that." You know, my father was right there making sure and, you know, instilling all these qualities in me. He picked up where my mother left off. We would have little contests like name all the countries in Europe. And if I named them all, I'd get $5. Name the capital of every state. He would have those kind of things to exercise our brain. And I was about maybe 8 or 9 then. And I learned a lot with him. So when I became 13 years old, my father picked me and my sister up and said, I want to tell you this before you read it in the paper. And he told me that he was involved with bringing methadone to Baltimore. And it was when I finally read the story, it just blew me away. I had no idea my father was even into drugs. He never used them, but he was the first person who transported from Virginia to Maryland methadone. And him and my relatives, my uncles and all that, they went to court. It was a big thing. I remember going to the court with him because, again, my father was my idol. He took me everywhere, every single way. I went to the court. I was like 12 or 13. And yeah, I was 12 or 13 years old back then. And I was shook, you know. And then he said he got found convicted. And he had like a week or two to turn himself in. And I remember, you know, wow, my father's getting ready to leave. And I didn't particularly get along badly with my stepmother, but we weren't close. It was something that, you know, prevented us. As a young man, a young boy, you know, I wanted my parents to be together. You know? I mean, that was the whole thing. So that kind of blocked me from getting super close to her, even though she's a wonderful person. She is. She stuck by my father. So my father went away, and we would go visit. We went to Federal Print up in Allentown. And I remember going to school. I transitioned to the 7th grade. And I remember I started drinking syrup. I don't know how it even came about. Didn't drink marijuana, and I started drinking alcohol. I started drinking alcohol. I started drinking syrup. And by the 9th grade, I was like 15, I did everything. It was on back then. I'll never forget. The only people I hung out with was people who used. At that time, I was about 15 years old, and 15 or 16. And I went through a phase like the hippie phase. You know, I would go to all these rock concerts and, you know, hang out with people who did the same thing that I did. And it got worse. It really did. A lot of people don't know this, and I never told this to anyone. But I failed high school. I failed the 12th grade. You know, not because I didn't know, wasn't smart. I missed 3/4 of the school semester. There was nothing for them to do but fail. And I remember the following year, I went to school when it opened, and I went to the first class, and I saw all these people that weren't in my graduating class. They were a class behind me, and that was the first and only day I went there. I didn't go back. I never went back. I took the GED And then after I took the GED, I went to college. Yeah, I went to the University of Baltimore. Again, I was still getting high. It was like part of me. To get high and loaded was like second nature. I mean, I'd get up in the morning, I'd smoke a joint, I'd drop some pills. Later on that day, I'd do some heroin. If I get some coke, it didn't matter, you know. I always was trying to emulate my father and be a hustler. I wanted to be a gambler because he was a really good gambler. But I never could, I didn't have that kind of personality. My personality, people like blocked me off. They shielded me. And my trauma stimulates from me basically being invisible. And I thought that was the way to go, you know, faking a fraud. I would be in the background. I didn't want anybody to know who I was or what I was doing. And that follows me to the day. You know, I have a problem with not being recognized. But most of the time, I don't want to be. So I battle that going back and forth. It's real interesting. So at any rate, I did, my father came home when I was in the 11th grade, and I thought things were going to be better, but it didn't get better. You know, he knew I was using, he knew I was into drugs. He tried to help me, took me to a therapist, psychiatrist, all kind of stuff. But, you know, I was in the wind by then. So my father had a lot of pistols. So I remember taking a gun, and me and my friend, we went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and we stuck up a dope dealer. Well, we got about 4 pounds of marijuana. And it was so stupid. I mean, we stuck them up, ran down the dorm. Everybody's saying this. I have the gun in my hand. I knew they were going to follow us. I mean, I knew we were going to get busted. I took the gun and I hid it in the woods. And then I didn't go home that night. And they raided my mother's house. And they called my father. And my father said, oh, let me back up for a minute. This was really interesting. Prior to that, my father couldn't do anything with me. And what happened was he said, you're going in the service. Well, when I went to the service, they saw all these needle marks on my arm, and I had to talk to the psychiatrist and this and that. They finagled away, and they were going to let me in. They were going to let me in if I went to the service. And I was like amazed. I knew I wasn't going to get in because I was a heroin addict. And when I did the stick up, that Monday, I was supposed to go to the bus and go down to, I think, Camp Lejeune. No, not Camp Lejeune. Camp Dix in North Carolina. I was scheduled to go there. And then I did the robbery on Saturday. And then Monday, I turned myself in. Well, at least to say that I wasn't going to the service. That was over with, you know, because I had a case. And it was armed robbery, pistol whipping, assault. I mean, I had a plethora of charges. Now, my father had been arrested numerous times, and he knew what to do, and he would tell me what to do. And the first thing he told me is never say anything. And I knew that well in advance, you know, so I didn't say anything. You know, I just gave my name, and that was it, nothing. They kept trying to question me. I said, I'm not talking, I don't know anything. I didn't say lawyer up. I didn't even really realize it because I was waiting for my father. He came down to the police station after I turned myself in because he told me to. And then eventually came down to the police station. And it was really kind of funny because the police would say something, my father would do the talking, and he would say, can I talk to my son for a minute? Now, I don't think they were filming back then, but you know, this is like 1971. They might have been, but my father would talk to me, and then he'd let the police come back in, and they would do the same thing, and he would go out. You know, I was kind of like proud to have him there because I knew I was going to be safe. I knew I was going to be okay. So what happened was I finally went to court, and I got probation. Little did I know that would come back to harm me. They made it common law robbery, but that wasn't on the paperwork. So I didn't do any time. I had a probation officer. I had to test clean. That was a nightmare because if you ever been in a game, getting somebody's urine is pretty gross, you know? But in order for me to stay out, I had to do it. And that was just, you know, it was a nightmare for about a year. But I did it. And I gave him, urine that was clean. And so I was going to college. I dropped out of college. I went just continuously used. I didn't get any big trouble in, nothing to send me away. But my life was miserable. I was 29 years old. Well, let me back up again because I really don't like to talk about it. My father would take me to the crap house, because I was a gambler too. And I was with this girl named Shawanda. And we probably were going to get married, I loved her and I wanted to get married. And my father said, "Are you coming to the crap house?" I said, "Yeah, I was." But I was tired. I'd been getting high and stuff. So I was tired. So the phone kept ringing. And I just didn't answer. And I knew it was my father wanting to take me to the crap game around about 12 o'clock. And the phone rang in the morning, about 7 in the morning. And it was my uncle. My uncle never called me. And he said, "Alan, I got some bad news to tell you." And I already knew. I started screaming. He said, "Your father's dead." I took the phone and just threw it and busted the window out. And it was a nightmare. I mean, really. I didn't say anything for days. The funeral was a week later. All I did, I really got into a bad funk. I would just drink and use, and I went for a downhill spiral. It was just, I still couldn't believe it. Even to this day, I can't believe it, not without my father. So he had left and died, and my mother, she couldn't handle me. I eventually moved out at 18. But that was before my father died. My father died when I was 29 years old. I know I'm bouncing around because I really don't tell my story. I tell these things to anyone. But my father died when I was 29 years old. And I never forget Mr. Parker. He was, how people will try to make you feel better, but when you lose a loved one, no one can say anything, and everybody mourns in their own way. But Mr. Parker, I used to sell cars, and he came up to me and he said, "If sad that your father left, one thing, he left you as a man. At least you lived to be 20-something before he passed." And that made me feel good because he didn't try to make me feel better. He just told me the truth. Mm-hmm. And it was, I had some time with him, to this day, my sister always says, "I wish I would have known our father as an adult," because she never had that opportunity. But I knew him. I did things with my father, not great things, but just to be with him. It didn't matter what we did as long as I was with him. So I moved into an apartment, and I would get bits and jobs here, and then I would lose them because, the drugs said, "Hey, you can't work this." And then I had a mindset that I would rather hustle and steal for $5 than to go to work for 10. That's, that was my whole mentality. I'm not going to be, I'm not a square. I didn't think I would live to be 40. I didn't go to a lot of family functions at the time. My mother was still with me. My mother, she stuck with me. My sister had gotten clean. She had went to a treatment facility and she stayed there for about a year, maybe a little bit more than a year. She had gotten clean and I was still running amok. And she really didn't have anything to do with me. She even told me one time, she said, "I can't stop you from seeing our mother, but I don't want anything to do with you. And if if you're around, that's fine. If you want to be with my mother, I don't want to hurt her, but I don't want nothing to do with you." Well, I was home one Thanksgiving, and mind you, I hadn't hit, I guess, rock bottom, but who knows what rock bottom is? Emotionally I had. And I was sitting in Thanksgiving in my place by myself, getting high, had cocaine, heroin, and I was really very, very lonely. You know, it seemed like the walls were closing. And I had a play uncle out here who was a friend of my father's. His name was Leo. I called Leo, and by the way, of course, he's a heroin addict. So I called Leo and said, I want to come to California. And he says, okay, no problem. You can stay with me. And it was like November 26th, December the 7th, I was in LA. I told myself, it was really interesting. I told myself, I'm going to go out there and I'm not going to use. So I took some dope on the airplane with me. I caught a cab when I got to the airport, and I asked him where the dope was. I mean, because I was addicted. And he was a heroin addict, but he could not, he lost all his veins, and he would make it liquid because it was tar out here, and he would take an eyedropper and snort it or something like that. But I would, go to the vein. But at any rate, I stayed with him, but I was the kind of addict or alcoholic that people really didn't want me around. He eventually, told me I had to get my own place. So I did. I got my own place. And then the real gist of the story and what happened was I was with this girl, and I robbed her. And I knew I couldn't go back to my place. And they said, go downtown. So I went to Skid Row, and I thought I had arrived. Mm-hmm. This was the greatest place in the world. I said, everything I want is here. Little did I know that I would be stuck down there for 4 or 5 years. Yep, I was there for about 4 years. And at that time, it was really weird. They were homeless, not many. I was telling my friend, they had tents, but guess what? If your tent was up in the morning, you wouldn't have it. The police would take it and throw it away. It was gone. So people stopped having tents because they would put up a tent on Skid Row, and they knew they had to take it down the next day. So they said, what's the point? It's too much. Forget the tent. And, hotel rooms were real cheap, Roslyn, all those kind of places, SROs. And I was just down there, and I was hustling. I started stealing. I started going to the jails. I really didn't do any high crimes, but I would just take people's stuff. I would go in stores and boost, go in stores. It got to the point where one time I was in the Valley, and I went into a store, and I think I stole like 20 packs of batteries or something like that. And when I went out, the security guard and them grabbed me. And then when they took me in the back room and they searched me, I had like $200 and something on me. He says, what's wrong with you? Because I went in the store, I think, to buy a pack of cigarettes, but it didn't matter. If I went anywhere, I'm taking something. So I went in there and, kept going in and out of jail. And then what happened was I was hard-headed. I thought I knew everything. My hustlers was selling outfits, selling needles, pipes, lighters, things like that. And I remember going up to, because I gotten homeless, believe it or not, it was easy to trick the social services. I had gotten a place in one of those SROs, just a room. And I remember they were getting ready to evict me. I owed 3 months rent. And the rent was like $64 or something. So they said, either you pay the whole thing or we're going to evict you. And I had the money. I had if I would have gave them all the money, I would have had like $5 left. And I'm so crazy, I forget the place. I just said, okay, you can evict me. Let me get my stuff. And I just left. So I was on the street hustling, going in hotel rooms, playing and all that. And then being the kind of person I am, I went to this, on 5th Street, it was a little restaurant where everybody would go get high and stuff like that, or go make transactions. They literally didn't get high. They had to sneak and do that. And I remember them saying, don't go out to jump out today. Jump out today. So I said, you don't know anything. Prior to me going in there, I had some heroin, and I went to McDonald's on Wilshire, on Broadway, and I did some, but I left some in the syringe. So I had my backpack, or whatever I had the stuff in, and I was going around the street trying to sell it. And a car pulled up, and they did exactly what he said. They jumped out on me, threw me against the wall and everything. I said, what are you doing? I didn't know that. It was the police who had busted me a few times. He just had it in for me. He said, I remember one time when he busted me, he said, just get him, just get him in the car. Don't worry about the charges. We'll deal with the charges later. Just grab him. And you know he's high. His nose isn't running. So, he was always after me. So when he found that, he hit the jackpot. He thought. So he took me to jail. And when I went to the arraignment, they said that I was selling drugs. And I wasn't selling drugs. I very rarely I sold drugs. If I sold drugs, I would buy like a pack of heroin and sell a few to my friends. I wasn't on the street doing it. I would just try to get my money back and flip it real quick. So I wasn't really a hardcore person that sold drugs. But when we went to court, he said, you going to either take the deal. Well, let me back up. I said, I'm not going to plead guilty to that. I'm not going to do that. That's what the public defender said. He said, if you plead guilty, I can get you 3 years with 80. And I said, what do you mean 3 years with 80? Why am I getting 80? I have an armed robbery on my record. When I was in court, they said common law record. So I have a strike. I said, oh my gosh, that's crazy. How did I even get a strike? So I definitely didn't want 3 with 80. But when he told me the charges, I said, well, I'm going to have to take this to the box. We're going to fight this. And I was in Supermax because after the first time I went to Wayside, I guess my record caught up with me. And every time I got, busted 6 or 7 times, I always went to Supermax. So it was dreadful because for 10 days, I would literally get up at 4 a.m, get ready, go eat breakfast with a sack lunch or whatever, get on the bus. They would drive pick up everybody, take me to CCB. I would sit in CCB all day. At 5 o'clock, they would take everybody back to all the other jails in LA. We would get back at 9, everybody sleep. I would eat in the cell and go to bed and get up at 4 for 10 days in a row. I didn't understand it, but they told me after 10 days, if they don't follow the charges, they drop it. Mm-hmm. So the 10th, 11th day, whatever it was, the judge came in front of me. He said, okay, we're dropping the charges, but I'm going to give you 16 months. So I got 16 months, never went to prison in my life. And since it was a low-level crime, I went to a dorm. I was in Delano, and I had all kind of problems in there because I wanted to do things my way. It was kind of funny and weird, though, because I was on the bottom bunk, and I always remember every morning, it was like an alarm clock. I would hit, boo, 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 boo. They were just regulating people. I'm saying, I know my time is coming. Boo, 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 boo. I would hear that. So at the time, we had cigarettes then. It was 1998, and we had cigarettes, and they were opening up the sap yard. And everybody said, I'm not going there. I have a 24-cent pay number. I'm not going there. And plus, I heard they don't have cigarettes up there. No, man, I'm going to do something. If they put me on that chain, I'm going to do something to stay back here. I didn't know what was going on. And I literally went to the dorm. And by the time I left the dorm, after I was supposed to do 10 months and 20 days on 16 months, I literally did 9.5 months. 9.5 months. I was the oldest person in the dorm when I left. I went to CCF, which is like a spa, a resort compared to what the stories I'd heard when I was in the Delano in the reception center. So I finally went to the CCF, and they were getting along with each other a little better, even though we did have one ride there. But they called me Pops, and I was only 43 years old. I'm saying,
surrounded by a bunch of youngsters.
yes, it was crazy. This guy from Long Beach, he found out I could play chess, so he pitted me with another guy to play chess because this guy was having his wife smuggling drugs. So he would bet that I would win, but because he was with this gang, I knew I'd be okay. I wouldn't have to worry about anything, and I would play and win. And yeah, I remember playing and win. So I got out, and I said, "Okay, I'm getting out Monday. Monday, I'm gonna go straight to the parole agent, and then right after that, I can start getting high, and then I'll have at least a month before I have to see him again." So that was on Monday. Do you know they had the nerve to let me out on Saturday? So I didn't do nothing Saturday. And I was like white knuckling. I said, "Oh, forget this." And I did. On Sunday, I used. And I hadn't used, even though there was drugs all around, I was too, I kicked. It took me a week or two to kick. So I didn't have any drugs in my system. So when they would get the drugs, I didn't want any because I didn't want any extra time. I said, I want out of here. I don't want to do anything to get any time. Even in the rides, I stayed back. I wasn't even messing with that. I made sure I wasn't even involved, And being Pops, it was cool. If I was a little younger, I probably would have got regulated for not getting involved because I think a couple people did. But so I used on Sunday. Monday, I went to the parole agent. I told him, I said, "Look, I'm going to be dirty." And he said, "Well, that's okay. If you're dirty again, I'm going to send you back." I said, "Oh, okay, no problem." So after that, I didn't have any place to go. And the parole agent sent me to a place called House of Hope up in Hollywood. And everybody there was getting high. Everybody was getting high. And at the time, I knew how to sell things. I would take and buy a little Mickey Mouse camera. I would put Canon on it. The sticker was more than the camera. Just to get a Canon sticker, I'd stick it on there, and I would go sell the camera for like it's a $400 camera. Put a price tag on it. "I'll give it to you for $200. No, I'll give you $100. Okay, here. And the whole thing cost me like $20. I would go to West Hollywood, and we would, because I had a ring. I'd go to West Hollywood, and we would take and put tape on tobacco and sell it for tie sticks in West Hollywood. I mean, all kind of stuff. It was crazy. So I went to the House of Hope, and wait a minute, I jumped through here. Oh yeah, I went to the House of Hope. No, I'm right. I went to the House of Hope, and I went to Hollywood, and I sold a camera for like $125. And wait a minute, did I jump in here? Oh no, I did jump in here. What happened was I was in the House of Hope, and I was shutting the door one day to the bathroom or something, and I hit my hand, and it busted. It was a big infection. I mean, it was almost, I looked like I had two hands. And I went to the hospital. I was still staying in the House of Hope. I went to the hospital, general, and the lady said, "Well, we're going to have to admit you. Look how big your hand is." And I said, "Oh, no, you can't admit me." And I said, "Well, if you don't get admitted, you probably never be able to stay in a hotel again because look at you. We're going to put it on your record that you going to get medical." I said, "Okay, all right, I'll go." And I only had like a couple bags of dope. So I went in this room, and the guy in the room was from this place called Walden House. And some people came to see him, and he was like, they were all the nights, whatever, they had let him come and visit him. And he kept saying to me the whole time, and I'd be in there shooting dope, and he would say, "You should come to the program." I said, "Man, are you kidding? No way." But I stayed there for about 6 days. They patched me up or whatever. And I thought about it, and I said, "Wow, I really don't want to go back to the House of Hope. I really want to get out of there." So he gave me this guy's number, Wayne Garcia. So I called Wayne, and Wayne said, call me back in an hour. Call me back in an hour. Who's your agent? I said, Lopez. He said, call me back in an hour. So I called him back in an hour, and he said, well, Lopez don't want you to go there. Apparently he had somebody who went there, and they went out backwards. And so he said, but don't worry about it. I'll get that straight. Just come down here Tuesday or something. I had to wait a day. And that's when I went to Hollywood and was hustling. And I remember I was getting ready to go on the program, so I had my crack pipe, and I put it in Pier 1. And I said, buried. I said, I wonder if I come back here, will it still be here? So I went to the House of Hope. And then my plan was to get up early in the morning, go downtown, because the treatment center was downtown. I was going to go downtown and get some dope and shoot it before I came in. But Wayne said, if I'm not there by that time, all bets are off. And when I woke up, I said, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time. I just was frantic because I said, I'm not going to be able to get in there. So I made it there, but I didn't go get the dope. And Jose Benitez was there. He said, take a seat right there on the bench or chair, whatever I had to sit. And he says, we're taking the people to the park, Pershing Park. So he had a group, it was an outing. And the person at the desk was Eric Estrada. He became my best friend. But I told Eric, I said, do you think I have time to run downtown real quick and come back up before this happens? He said, oh, no, we don't do that here. And I said, oh, this is another square. This is going to be rough. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do here. So I sat there, did the intake and all that. And because I didn't have any more dope, I stayed in my room for 7 days. Wayne knew. I mean, you could look at me and see I was all about 110, 120 pounds. I was like shrunk up. You know, the biggest thing on me was my head. So I stayed in the room, and Wayne was the kind of guy who wanted to mix people up. And I remember he put me with this Mexican guy named Taco. And Taco was, you know, from the tip or whatever the case may be. And he says, you know what? I don't have no blacks. You need to go down and tell him to move you because I don't have no blacks in there. I said, look, I really don't care. You do what you got to do. And I started throwing up and stuff. And I was sick. I just said, do what you got to do. And I just laid in bed, and they would, you know, come down, bring me some food, or I went downstairs. I can't remember. But I stayed there for 6 or 7 days to get sober. And, I mean, to get the dope out of my system. But the interesting thing is I went to the House of Hope on August the 6th. And then I went to Walton House the 24th. So in 3 weeks, I'd got my habit up to that level where I was shooting, you know, 10, 15 bags a day in 3 weeks. So that's when I got in recovery, it reminded me, you know, you start off where you left off. And I sure did. So at any rate, what happened was I got up after 7 days and started going to these groups and started doing this kind of stuff. And then I went into the office of Rick Elmore, and I said, well, I guess it's over. My time is up. I got to get out of here. And he says, where you going? I said, downtown. Where else you think I'm going? And, you know, he was like 20 years younger than me. That's why you can get the message from anybody. You know, you have to be there. You have to listen, and you have to listen with an open mind. You can't just write anybody off. That's where I learned that at Walton House. And he said, how long you been shooting dope? I said, oh, man, let me see. Probably about 25 years now. Yeah, 25, a little bit more maybe. And he says, how long you been going in and out of jail? I said, a while. He said, so you're telling me you did all that, you won't give this program 6 months. If you give this program 6 months and you don't, we don't promise you what we have, then you can always go back. What 6 months you did all that dope, you did all that time. And I said, all right, I'll stay. And that's when I finally started listening in group. Because Wayne came into Erickson Hall and he said, your past does not have to be your future. I said, your past does not have to be your future. And then I caught on like wildfire. It was crazy. I don't even know, it had to be a spiritual thing from God because I was saying things that I didn't even believe. I mean, prior, but I was coming out of my mouth and I was like, did I just say that? I remember I was with this group in the back, but they smoking in Walden House, and they said they were scheming on something. And I went to the evening meeting that day, and I said, listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you do anything around me, I'm supporting. I don't care. They tell me if I do this, I won't have to come back in no more. So if you do anything wrong around me, I'm gonna support you. And nobody hung out. And that was kind of good. You know, a few people did, but very rarely, because they knew I was serious. Because when they said cares and concerns, I told them that's my concern. You know, because I'm trying to get this, and I don't want anything to stop it. So it happened. So I got off of orientation. I knew I was going to get a job immediately. I went up to Hollywood. I got a job in telemarketing. I went to telemarketing. I would go there and with the job, and then Wayne said, "You have to leave." Now I checked in August 24th, 1999 is my clean date. So I checked in on the 24th of August, and on the November, the beginning of November, Wayne said, "You got to go to sober living." I said, "Oh no, Wayne, I've never been sober. I can't even remember the last time I was sober, and this is serious. I can't fathom myself not using over the holidays. No way. I'll be out there. I'm telling you." And Wayne let me stay until January 2nd. You know, that's the kind of man he was. Because I said, "There's no way in the world I'm gonna my first Christmas sober. I'm gonna have a needle in my neck. I know this." So he let me stay, and 2 weeks later, I enrolled in school. And I didn't even know I wanted to be a drug counselor. What I did when I was going to the telemarketing, I would have to get up at 7. I would have to be there at 7 because we were selling, ink. We were selling ink to people back east. So we had to be there. It was like 10 o'clock back east, 9 o'clock in some places. And we would go there and sell, and then we would get off at 1 o'clock. So we'd go 7 to 1. It was only 5 hours. And I would jump on the bus, come all the way to Walden House, and I would do the ABC group. I would go, and then eventually Jose will get you to do a group anytime. He's always been like that. He said, well, you might as well do it. So I was facilitating the ABC group. And it was strange. It was fun. I went to sober living, and they moved me from sober living on Alvarado to Menlo. And everybody at Menlo was a sex offender. I wasn't. Everybody, they sent me. What had happened was one boy needed the money or something because the sober living paid more, and he wanted my bed. And I got into a big fight and everything. And I said, "I don't have nowhere to go." "What do you mean you're going to take me out? I have all this time left." So I went to Menlo, and they paid for me to stay in Menlo for 6 months because I only stayed in Alvarado for about maybe a month and a half. And I stayed in Alvarado, and I found out that everybody there was a sex offender. I didn't care. I wasn't one, so I didn't even trip on them. And I was going to LACC. I would get up in the morning, go to work, come back and do ABC group, then go to school, then come back. I mean, I would join the 12 steps, and I would go to a meeting. I mean, my schedule was packed. The thing I thought about the most before I got sober was, what am I going to do? There's nothing to do if I get sober. What am I going to do at the time? My first 6 months, I was busy. I mean, I was just packed. I didn't know anything about Walden House. You know, on the weekends, I would go see a friend of mine, Mike Martin, and I would hang out all day, Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday, I'd do my same regimen. I mean, this was consistent, you know, like I had met Roy Allen there, and I knew Roy from the streets. You know, when I first met Roy, I said, "So what's the thing? What's the plan? What are you doing? How are we going to do something?" He said, "Man, this is serious." I said, "Are you for real?" This was before I had talked to Rick and everything. I said, "You here to get clean?" I said, "Oh, I got to stop hanging around with him." You know, they they called him Black on the street. But so Roy said, no, I don't. When I said Black, he said, oh, no, I don't go by that name. I said, okay, well, that's cool. So Roy became my friend. Me and Roy would go down there and stay with Mike Martin on the weekends, every weekend. And then it happened. Christina Manuelito asked me did I want to work for Walden House. Now, I went to school to learn more about drugs because I always thought education was important. I had graduated, I didn't even tell you this, but I had graduated from college in 1992. I graduated from high school, I left high school in 1973. So 19 years later, I get a degree in political science because I wanted to be a lawyer. The whole time I'm getting high. So getting high and just being normal was my whole routine. But I said, okay, I went to LACC to learn more about drug use. And then everybody wanted to be a counselor. And then when Christine asked me would I be the overnight counselor at $10 an hour, I said, sure. So I quit the telemarketing to do that. And then I had a little money saved, but basically I was living off credit cards because I had moved to this apartment. The rent was like $525 a month, right off Catalina, which is funny because now I'm back there, not at the place, but I'm on that street. So I went to LACC and I thrived there. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, I still had that behavior in me, and sometimes I didn't know things. I never told this to anybody, but I would try to get a good paper. And I never forget this professor named Blythe Daniels. She kind of turned me around from being, to be honest. Because I still, when I was in Walden House, I got 3 contracts. I got 2 contracts for being around people. And then when I went to people I shouldn't have been around. And then when I went to outpatient, I got a contract because I was getting, the whole time I was in Walden House, I was getting GR.
Double dipping.
I was double dipping badly. And Wayne found out about it, gave me a contract in outpatient. So I had a total of 3 contracts, 2 in residential and 1 in outpatient. So what happened? I forgot where I was. I'm jumping around all in my head because I didn't tell people about it. So this girl who was in my class, one of my classes, I told her I was writing a paper on post-traumatic stress disorder. And she said, I have one, you can read mine. And so when I looked at her paper, I said, oh, I can change that. So I just used her paper and moved a few things around. At the time, I thought it was okay. I had no idea I plagiarized. The next day, the teachers calls me when I turn my paper, and she calls me and comes me in the office and says, you plagiarized this paper, so I'm gonna fail you. I said, really? And I said, oh my gosh, that was devastating. I had to go talk to the dean and all that, and so it was embarrassing. I dropped out the course and everything. The next semester, I took the course, and I got an A. I got B's most of the time, but I got an A. And that showed me something because she was the one that failed me. Instead of me having resentments, I went back to there, wrote my own paper. She said, it was good. Now, aren't you proud that you did your own work? And I said, yeah. And it hit me when Wayne said, if you own it, then you can correct it. If you don't own it, you can't. And all that time, I was still doing hustling, getting judged, doing stuff, just trying to make a buck. So I eventually graduated. And they hired me. Well, they hired me before I graduated. I graduated in 2001. And September, Wayne hired me. So get this, I get out of prison in 1999, August 24th, I go into Walden House. September the 1st, I'm hired. In January, then I became a counselor. So in a matter of 16 months, I'm a drug and alcohol counselor. And then I really got on fire. I went and got not 1,
but 3 certifications. I had 3.
Hey, so let me ask a question.
I know
real quick.
I'm long-winded. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
even
yeah.
know I was
No,
gonna talk
no,
this
no, no.
long.
I'm like just sucking it in. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
when you were doing that overnight thing, was that volunteer?
No,
So you were actually getting paid?
yeah, Christine Manuelito said, "Do you want to do overnight?"
Oh,
And I would
so
work
was
8.
that at Walton House?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was at
okay.
Walton House.
Okay. Because when you said you became, so you don't consider that being counseling when you were just doing overnight. Okay.
No.
But you were officially there around.
Yeah, because I couldn't do any treatment plans. What I
Okay.
would do, as far as counseling, when anybody couldn't sleep, they would come down and I would talk to them and all that,
Oh, yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, but that wasn't really. I would no notes, nothing. So I didn't consider that being a counselor. But now I do now. But at the time I didn't. But when I became a counselor, it was. I went and got 3 certifications. I got the Christian certification. I got KD, and at the time I got KDAC. I had 3 because I knew that they were going to get licensed. I said I'm going to get as many as I have because I don't know who's going to get the license. I eventually wound up on KDAC board of directors, and yeah, I wound up on the board of directors. But getting back to my story, I'm coming to the end, folks. So
Keep going.
Coming to the end. As a counselor, I kind of sucked everything in, but I wasn't one of those counselors who was like real friendly. Had no traits like my father gravitate to me. People kind of stayed away from me, which was okay. But I would like read, I would go to school, I would go to meetings, and I knew kind of what to say. But I also knew the third thing Wayne taught me was if A helps B, A stays well. So I didn't care about people. I said, I want to stay well. I want to stay well. If I help them, I'm going to stay well. But if you do it long enough, if you fake it till you make it, then you start caring about people. And I start saying, wow, I really care about this person. It's unusual. Things were happening to me. And so I became a counselor. I became an orientation counselor. I became a supervisor. And in 2005, I went down to work at SASCA in 2005. In 2015, I left Walton House. One of the hardest things to do. I was very upset that I left it because my dream was to just die there. I was going to stay there, like my friend Mike Brennan. I was going to stay there to the bitter end. But I left, which probably was the best thing I could have done because, I'm not really a religious person, but I definitely know there's a God because I shouldn't even be here. And the things he has done for me, because I even marveled some of the stuff. I say, how did that even happen? I said, oh, that's right. God's got me. And then the things that I think are going to happen and I want to work, I won't get. So I got out of the result business. I just do the best I can, and whatever he wants for me, I'm going to get or I'm not going to get. And I accept that. So I got into a lot of acceptance. But, my journey, I know I bounced around a lot, but my journey is pretty, when I've opened that door, it's pretty traumatic, to lose my father, to lose my sister, my brother. I didn't mention this, but Joanne was my father and my mother's child. My mother gave the child up to my aunt, and she kind of grew up with us, but she wasn't my sister. We reunited since then, and I love her to death. My stepfather had a son, and he left my mother and took the son to North Carolina. And I didn't talk to my brother, my half-brother from my mother's side. I didn't talk to him for 50 years, but we reunited. So this is the blessings that come when you're doing the right thing or when you got, a spiritual background. That's what I believe. And my trauma really stems from the abuse that I saw with men hitting women, the abandonment of not having them around. And it hit me deeply, because I had to learn everything on myself. Back then, it was a whole different thing. I remember leaving the house at 18 years old and I couldn't make it. And I went back home to my mother and she said, oh, your room is gone. You left, which was good because now I got to be a man. You know, she didn't let me. It's over. You're 18 years old. You got to hit the streets. But she still loved me. It wasn't that kind of thing. She wanted me to grow up because that's how it was. But at any rate, I left Walden House and I worked for a few companies, and God just done it again and gave me a treatment facility. And so, with the help of my partner, my significant other, soon to be my wife, we opened up Bold Recovery. And I've been there for 6 years, and I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. We don't make a lot of money, but we have a lot of fun and we help a lot of people. We do make money enough to live, but that's not it. I remember in grad school, because I went back, I forgot that he mentioned this. I went back to, I had my degree. I went back to get my master's. And a young lady raised her hand one day and says, I'm going to be a therapist and all that. What happens if I can't make any money? And he said, the magical thing, he says, if you're good, you never have to worry about money. So I just concentrated on being good. Forget the money. The money will come if you know what you're doing. And I only went to grad school because Dr. Ritchie had said, I told him something, because I wound up being Dr. Ritchie's supervisor. I'm a supervisor again, believe it or not. But at that time, I was at Walden House, and he was at Walden House. I was a supervisor. And I told him something. He said, you know what? When you go to grad school and you write all these papers and you sit for the exam and you get licensed, then maybe you can tell me that. But until then, you can't. And Richie would never say that to anybody, but I rubbed people the wrong way a lot. So he just, and he said it in such a nice way. I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get on the other side. And it's real funny because the drug and alcohol counselors always criticizing the therapist, and the therapist always criticizing. They never got together. I said they
always
really
bumping heads.
Always. So that's my story. I'm at Bold Recovery. I'm planning on retiring in a couple of years, but my journey has been a great one. I tell you, like JoJo, running into all these people, being able to be of service, being able to see people reuniting with their families, being able to see people become productive citizens. I mean, I'm 24/7. If you call me, I'm going to help you. Not only to help myself, but to help you. I put you in front now. I tell all my staff, if you put the client first, you'll never lose. Don't worry about the note. Don't worry about yourself. Make sure the client is taken care of, and you will always be successful. So that's it. That's my story.
Yeah, that's a good story, man. It's a successful story, you know what I'm saying? And, I didn't want to interrupt, a lot about, I wanted to ask more about your father's military, me being a military guy with all that,
Mm-hmm.
Did he complete his 4 years and that was it, or did he move on?
Yeah, he still was a hustler. He was, by the way, he was playing cards, hustling, and that's how I got my name. He was with a guy from Britain, and a guy from France, and a guy from United States, and a few others. And they said, okay, his name's going to be Allen, but we need to know how to spell it. And they were talking, and before I was born, and they spelled it the English way, A-L-A-N. The American way is A-L-L-E-N, and all that. The French way is A-L-A-I-N. So, but what happened was he completed, and then he went to California, came to California. He completed in Alaska.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Hey, Alan, let me ask you something, though, because I didn't want to interrupt you, though, because when you failed that 12th grade, and then that next year, you went for a couple of days, and you said, that's it, I'm done. Then you ended up getting your GED, and then you ended up getting caught up in your addiction. And your dad came to kind of like your rescue, be like, let me help you get into treatment. But, you respected your dad so much, and he was that powerful in your life. Why didn't you accept the help from him at that time?
He wasn't more powerful than dope.
Okay.
I was way out there.
Did you have any animosity? Because I know he went to jail. He left you. The way you told the story was like he left us. And when he came home and he kind of, he wanted to help his son. He was in a position to help you. But was there any resentment of him going to jail, or it was just like, hey, that's just, what were your feelings like when you found out that, you know, he was going to jail?
I was hurt. I was shattered. I buried the resentment.
You did, okay.
I buried it deep.
Okay.
You know, I had to, because I couldn't exist.
Mhm.
And I buried it with alcohol and syrup.
Okay.
You know, I was in the seventh grade, seventh grade when he went away. So I just gravitated to that, and that eased the pain.
When you say syrup, you're talking about cough syrup, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just for some of our newer, I got some younger people on here.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know they're here, Lil Wayne, you know, sipping on that syrup too. But yeah,
Yep.
okay,
Closer.
yeah, that was the easiest stuff to get, huh?
Yeah.
I get a little buzz.
Well, believe it or not, you could buy it over the counter.
Yeah.
They outlawed it. That's how old I am. You could buy it over the counter, and it had codeine in it. You know,
Mm,
right on the label.
that was the good stuff back
Yes.
then.
Yes, right over the counter.
Yeah, people think that NyQuil was good.
Yeah, I was legally getting out. Well, no, illegally because I was
Yeah.
underage. But I mean, they were selling alcohol, they were selling syrup. I wasn't buying for the dope deal
Mhm.
until 15. So
Yeah. But man, Alan, I am so grateful to have you here today. And I didn't share a lot about, you know, our connection, but it is Walden House. You know, I mean, this brother right here, like he said, I was just sharing with my son when we're driving over, you know, giving my son a little intro on him. And I said, man, this man was so busy. Like he said, he was so busy, and he wasn't, you know, he wasn't one of them ones that just want to be friendly with staff, with clients. He did his job, he did it good. But I mean, this man was all over the place, man, getting stuff done. You know what I mean? And a lot of the schooling and stuff, man, I used to go in your office and see all these different things, and I'd be like, that's what's up. You know what I mean? Like I mean, you're very inspirational in my life. And you know what? They say a wise person learns from other people's mistakes and whatnot. And I remember every time I would sit in them house meetings and hear you give someone a contract, I used to be like, man, I'm never getting a contract. And one year for our Christmas party, they said, hey, I need you and Alan to do a little role playing. And I was like, all right, I'm down. And they were like, yeah, Alan's going to give you a haircut. I was like, wait a minute, man. That, you know, that's too close. I don't want no hair. For you guys that don't know what a haircutting treatment is, that means a verbal blasting of your character. I'm talking about where it makes you feel this big, you know what I mean? And this man right here was good at doing that. And it wasn't so much making you feel this big because it was the bigger picture afterwards. Because not only would he make you feel this big, but at the end of it, he made you feel this big. You know what I mean? He built you back up and give you some reasons to stay, you know. But man, I thank you just for bringing up a lot of the names, the Roy Owls and the Michael Martins, because them were inspirational people in my life. Especially during them weekends when Roy would come over and bring some donuts and, you know, Mike Martin, when I do Firewatch, Mike Martin, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You didn't consider yourself a counselor, but Mike Martin was probably one of the main people that kept me in the program early in the first few days. Well, not in the first few days, because I was very grateful for Walden House, but it was probably about the 31st day when I was allowed to go job searching and just wanting to go home and wanting to leave and wanting to go do my own thing. And Mike Martin, he said, like, you know, he's, you know, bring me back to where I needed to be, you know. And it's funny when I think about the haircut that he gave me, it was so funny because he said, this is Walden House. This isn't JoJo's house. Like, you ain't going to keep doing things your way. And I felt like I was about to get a contract for real. I was like, I better be good. But man, Alan, man, thank you for being here. Thank you for being an inspiration in my life. Thank you for helping out so many of my, you know, my Walden House brothers. Thank you, man, for just being the man you are. You know, hearing your story and hearing about the abuse and I said, man, you sure did turn out to be a great man, bro. You really did, man. You're somebody to look up to. You're very inspirational. I mean, man, your education's off the hook, you know, considering, you know, the whole Skid Row thing. I mean, once you hear Skid Row, you don't put a man like you and Skid Row, you know, hand in hand. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, that's a great story, man, of hope, you know, that regardless of where you're at right now, man, there's still so many possibilities for you to get somewhere else. And like we know, our paths don't have to be our future. We already know it's not how you start, it's how you finish. You know, A helping B and A staying well. I mean, these are the things that kept me out of prison the last, I'm almost at 21 years when you first met me.
Yes.
Almost 21 years of me being free because of people like you speaking into my life, teaching me how to be a man of integrity, teaching me how to be accountable, teaching me how to own my own. All them things are still principles that I practice every single day. I mean, my son could tell you right here, I took it home. I used to put him on contract at home. I mean, he sat at the bench at Hill Street.
Well, you gave me a lot of good advice too. I remember I'd gotten terminated from SASCA. We lost the contract, and always go to Wayne, and I didn't have a job. I went home and I called Wayne. Wayne said, "You're licensed, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'll call you back." Again, he called me back and said, "Show up at FOTEP." And remember, I used to call you and ask you questions about, because you were like me. You were the only male out there.
Yeah.
And I was the only male out there. And I would call JoJo and say, what do I do then? He would just guide me and stuff.
Yeah.
So you helped me.
Yeah. But man, it's crazy though, man. All these years still helping people, you know what I mean? And every time I, get around you and other brothers, man, it inspires me to continue, because, for me, I'm so focused on my family today. I'm blessed with my 4, beautiful children. I'm blessed with my wife, Shout out to my wife. That's my biggest encourager. She's my biggest thorn in my side sometimes, but she's also my biggest encourager. She's done push me beyond what I thought I could do. You know what I mean? Starting my own businesses. It was her telling me you could do it. Like, you need to stop working for the man, start working for yourself. You need to, go out there and get it, and she pushes me every day to, be a better person and stuff. And man, but yeah, Alan, I can't thank you enough for just, helping me to get to where I'm at today. For real.
And you're still
real
a counselor.
Yeah.
You're still a counselor. I think you stay as a repayment to Walden House.
Yeah, I remember, man, in my first early days, like you said a little while ago, and I don't want to misword it, but when you do what you like, you don't have to worry about it. Or what was it exactly how you said it?
If you're good at what you do, you don't have to worry about the money.
Yeah, exactly. And that was me for so many years, just volunteering, just you know what I mean? Because that's what I learned freely. Freely it was given to me, and freely I give back. Right. You know what I'm saying? And in the process, man, I've done help. So you know what? Let me share this with you. One day, I was driving down Imperial, and where was I at? I was on Imperial. I was somewhere over there by Carson somewhere, right? No, not Carson. I was down there by going towards Eaglewood. And this lady asked me if I had a couple of dollars or whatever, right? And she looked like she was high or whatever, and I gave her a business card. And I had my Walden House. I was an orientation counselor at that time. I said, you know what? Here's a couple of bucks, man. Here's my number. Call me if you want some help getting into a program or a shelter or something. Call me. And she said, all right, man, thank you. This lady invited me a few years later. She became a counselor, and now she just opened up a program down there in LA. I think it's in Lenox somewhere. She opened up a program. She remembered me from helping her that moment. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't remember her or nothing. But when she was reminding me of it, I was like, she was like, you don't remember me? And I was like, I think so. She said, yeah, it was way back in early. It was probably like 2008 or 2007, some at that point. You know what I mean? And it's crazy though, how you never know how someone's life will turn just by simply being of service.
Right. We never know how many people we help.
Yeah.
We planted the seed. We might not be there to see it grow.
That's true. But I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful. And thank you for sharing your story. It is a powerful story, And just for all my viewers that know that I'm a diehard Steeler fan, regardless of him being a Raven fan, I still got mad love for this, bro. Every football season, man, we be going at it, but that's just brotherly love, man. And yeah, man, I am so grateful. Has anybody said anything about you want to open it up for some calls real quick? Yeah. See, let's open it up for some calls. Let's see if somebody's watching. I know maybe Chris might call in because he be promoting us a lot. So we'll just see. You got the tag on there? And did you run his information ready?
I have it.
All right. So Bold Recovery, right? Bold Recovery. We're gonna put the number up there right now. Their website. Be sure to look at it. Take it down. And what is it that Bold Recovery offers?
We do substance use disorder, mental health, and case management, and kind of like wraparound services. So whatever you need, we're there for you to re-enter society. We only work with the criminal justice. I tried to move away from it, but God had other plans. I went and worked for a private agency, 2 of them, by the way, and he brought me back to the criminal justice.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you see his number on the screen. His that's his website, www.boldrecovery.com. That's their phone number, 213-327-4209. And we open up the phone lines real quick. If anybody would like to call in, we're going to keep it open for a minute. It's 626-367-9275. It's right there on the screen as well. And man, it was really good, really hearing your story, because I have only heard bits and pieces, about you being in downtown. Hold on real quick. Somebody is calling in. Hold on 1 second. You guys that are calling in, hold on. Hello, can you hear me? Hey, hold on 1 second. Hold on. Let me get you on the speaker. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Don't hang up. Hold on. Every time I do this, the first call, I always have to. Hold on 1 second. All right. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Can you hear Alan?
Yes, I can hear.
All right. You're on.
Yes, I understand that clearly. Go on. Well, I think anybody can change, and anybody should be given the opportunity if they're willing to change. If it's too much, then you have to go back and start reading material, start asking questions like to me and JoJo, and try to feel comfortable about it. But don't work with it if it's blocking. That's the first thing. The second thing, the second thing is when you get to that place, you have to treat the problem, treat the symptom, meaning you have to compartmentalize their crime and focus. If you can't do that, you can't treat them, but you focus on what they came in there for. Meaning, if the person came in there for substance use disorder, why are you trying to get them housing? You don't do that, do you? If they mention housing, you're going to say, no, we don't do that here. So mentally, you have to put that on the side and treat that, because guess what? If you stop them from using drugs and alcohol, they may not reoffend. So you might be saving a little girl or a little boy from trauma. So, but the biggest thing is to work with yourself and do not treat anyone that's going to block you. And not only sex offenders, some people's personality blocks people from helping. If you can't get by that, and your primary focus is something else other than what you're supposed to do, get out. Tell your supervisor you can't work.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that, I just want to say that was a very good move, because it showed me that you put the client first, even though you had the feelings. because if you would have stayed with him, you might have said something or did something to block his treatment. So you put the client first, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I felt the same way when I first became a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you never know who you're going to get in your case, or you never know what they're going to open up and share. And I remember at first too, I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to deal with this? But, you know, I had to put my differences aside and look at the person and feel his heart, because he really wanted, you know, to change his ways. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, you know, the Lord put him, you know, me being a Christian, you know, I looked at it, well, the Lord has him in my path right now. And the Lord wants me to be compassionate and understanding of, you know, this man was probably in bondage, you know, and some sort of, you know, through my spiritual beliefs. Like, you know, I said, but I'm gonna treat him where he is, and I'm gonna respect, you know, his privacy, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I eventually worked through it, where I just seen that person for who he was, and did my best as a counselor to help him with what he needed help with. You know what I mean? Of course, you know, I mean, we, you know, in my field of work, it was mainly like the criminal addictive side, and it was the, you know, the substance, you know what I mean? So that's what we addressed. But as long as he eventually he ended up saying, this first one that I could really look back on, he had said, you know, it's the drugs that make me freaky and make me forget about the morals and values. Mm-hmm. So he said, man, if I could stay clean and sober, I'll make better decisions. So that's, you know, the way I went about it at that early stages of my counseling. But yeah, you know, like he said, though, there's some times where you have to hand them off so they could get the help that's needed. You know what I'm saying? We just can't try to. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're not the only one. I mean, it could be someone's sexual orientation. It could be someone's religion. It could be someone's skin color. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So they have to still do the same thing.
Yep, that's true. Yep. All right. Thank you for the support. Appreciate it. Yeah, that was a good one. And I remember I used to you know what I struggled with for a while, and I had to talk to Wayne about it, was like drug testing, like my homies and stuff. And I'd be like, man, you know, like I really need to, like, if you dirty, I gotta report it. Like there ain't no way around it. You know what I mean? Like, if I really care about you, you getting your life together and you getting serious, and you want to be there for your kids, man, we gotta do this by the rules. You know what I'm saying? Because if I keep on, you know, if I'm to, you know, hide stuff from you, you just won't continue, man. You ain't gonna get no help. You're faking it. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was hard for me at first. You know what I mean? I used to have to tell it, man, you hold on, man. You know, you're opening up time. I need to get someone else to test. You know what I'm saying? Because, man,
I had a couple of people tell me, you better stay sober, because if you go back into jail, you know.
That was a scary thing for me to buy in. You know, I was afraid to buy into the whole recovery process, because, especially because I got it in prison. You know, I spent my early years of counseling in prison, calling people out, supporting all that stuff in prison. And I was like, man, I don't think this is going to be my last stop. You know, I don't think Walton House is going to show up in Folsom for me if I get transferred out somewhere. You know what I mean? It was crazy buying in, bro. It was crazy, but thank God for, you know, them good people like John Stallone and the John Rioses and, you know, the Fred Tents and people that came in and spec into my life. You know what I mean? And the Wayne and the Vickas. You know,
was the tall black guy?
Which one?
On the yard.
Oh, yeah. Big Frank.
Big Frank.
Yeah, we went to his funeral in Fresno. Me, Wayne, Don Clark, and Rob White in the snow. We had to cross over the grapevine in the snow. Actually, Wayne ended up taking a deviation. I think we went through the 14, the back way, to get to Fresno for his funeral. Right when they started the service, we got there. It was crazy. Even having to turn around the grapevine because it was snowed out. Crazy stuff. Yeah, we got a question from the audience. Excuse us. We're in a live broadcast.
So, what do you what's your support system now? How do you stay connected to Walden House?
Oh, let me say that out loud. So one of our guests here is asking our guest, Alan, what's his support network today?
I've numerous ones, but the one she's particularly talking about is 1355. We started this from a famous guy that everybody liked, similar to my father. You know, he was a magnet with great charisma. Michael Brenner. Michael Brenner, we went to a celebration of life, and two of my friends, both of them were counselors before I was, Mike Woodson and Harold McGee. They said, we should give people their flowers before they leave. You know, because what happened, people came up and started talking about all this good stuff that Mike did, and they hadn't seen him in another year or 2 years. So we started celebrating the living. And 1355, we do that every quarter. We celebrate somebody. This one is coming up now. It's going to be at Delancey Street. I don't have the address, but this one coming up now will be the first person that we're going to honor that wasn't affiliated with 1355 Walden House of Health Right. This person will be the first of many to come, because we're going to spread this out to the community. We're still going to honor Health Right Walden House and that kind of thing, but we're going to bring everybody in because people are doing some good work out there. We want them to be acknowledged.
Yeah. If you wonder where 1355 is, that's the address to the LA Walden House back in 1997. Is that when it first launched? Was it 97?
I think it was. Yeah. No, 98. 98. I came there in 99. It was open the year. 98.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, that was the Walden House, Los Angeles, down there on Hill Street.
Have you been back there?
Oh yeah, it's nice. It's beautiful.
They have built up everything there, and the structure's still there.
Yeah.
They got high rises all around it. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah. Mike Brenner was trying to sell me a brick from there when they were doing this stuff. I said, come on, Mike. Nah, he had told me to stop by though to grab one. He said they're rebuilding around there. They're putting all them bricks to the side. Wow. You know, that brick house, it was that old red chimney brick, man. But let me tell you, man, I refer to that house as a house of miracles, you know, because I spent almost 13 years, you know, from the time I got there, you know, when it flipped over even to the women's facility, you know, and man, I mean, that was a house of miracles for me. I remember that sign. I share it often, that sign in the front that said, today is the first day of the rest of your life, right? When you were walking up the green steps to the Nexus. And that sign, it stood out to me because here I am coming off a 45 to life sentence. And here I am in downtown LA about to start a new journey when I was condemned to prison, you know? Yeah. And I seen that sign. Jeremy was walking me up this. It was like, yeah, come on in and we'll have you sign it, right? And I was stuck looking at that sign, reading that sign.
You mentioned some famous names. I mean,
yeah,
Jeremy,
you did
too. Don Clark, Rob Wah.
Yeah.
Some of these people on with us today.
Yeah. I mean, it's inspirational stories, and you know, it's just so many that we've crossed paths with, and yeah, I'm honored to, you know, claim that family as my own. You know, even though things have changed, you know, I still got it in me. It's my house, my responsibility. You know.
Yes.
I mean,
those things we'll take with us to the grave.
Yes, for sure.
So important.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we're going to go ahead and we're going to conclude today. An hour and 25 minutes. You said you were going to go
30 minutes.
Anyways, man, I thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys were inspired by this man's story. You know, if you tapped in between, be sure to go back and watch it on YouTube and, you know, catch the full story. Don't forget, like and subscribe, share it, leave a comment. We like comments. We like to give back. So please leave a comment, man, and we'll definitely communicate with you. Don't forget to like the page. And also, don't forget to check out my website, www.trapfamilies.com. Got a few different things on there. A lot of people have been calling me, asking me, you know, how you could get me to go speak. Everything's right there on my website for us to go ahead and book that and lock that in, okay? And remember, I just don't go preach. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a life coach. I do a lot of different things. So just get a hold of me. Let's find out what population you're dealing with, and we'll set something up So for now, thank you. Don't forget to tune in next week. We have a good one next week as well. A young man, his mom and dad were they were drug traffickers from Mexico over here. I'm not going to tell you for who or what, but he has an interesting story, man. And if I say his name right now, you'll probably definitely know who I'm talking about. But good young man. He's all over TikTok and all over this stuff doing things. So be sure to tap in next Sunday, 6 p.m. So for now, God bless you guys. You guys take care. Have a good work week. And God bless.
Thank you for allowing me to come.
Yes, thank you.